Have you ever noticed how some battles are not yours to fight, yet we charge in as if the outcome defines us? Tonight, I want to show you the freedom that comes when we simply step back. Recognizing the true battles in your life is a form of higher wisdom, a quiet awakening that whispers to your spirit. Not everything deserves space in your heart. It is one of the most liberating realizations a person can have, yet it often arrives late, arriving only after we have poured our energy into conflicts that never mattered, people who never deserved that much of our time, and arguments that drained us rather than shaped us. But once you learn to distinguish between the battles that belong to you and the battles that were never yours, you begin to protect your energy like a sacred gift. Most people spend their lives fighting anything that challenges them. Every insult, every misunderstanding, every disagreement, every loud voice demanding attention. They react out of habit, not purpose. But reaction is not direction. It is not leadership of the self. It is simply letting the world decide how you feel. Recognizing the true battles is stepping into a deeper maturity where your responses are chosen, not dragged out of you by circumstances. It is the moment you realize your peace is your responsibility, and your energy is too precious to be wasted on the trivial. There are battles that come to refine you, battles of purpose, battles of the soul, battles that shape your destiny. And then there are battles that come only to distract you, derail you, and drain you. But when you do not know which is which, you treat everything as if it has the same weight. You pour your heart into arguments that do not grow you. You fight with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You push back against opinions that do not change the truth of who you are. And in doing so, you lose time, peace, and emotional strength that could have been invested in something worthy, something that builds you. To recognize the true battles, you must first recognize yourself. You must know what matters to you, what values shape you, what vision pulls you forward, and what peace you are unwilling to sacrifice. When you do not know yourself, everything becomes an attack, everything becomes a threat, and everything becomes a battle. But when you are anchored in your spirit, when you know who you are without question, you no longer chase every conflict. You no longer jump into storms that were never meant for you. You learn to let noise be noise. You learn to let people be who they are without trying to fix, prove, or correct them. And most importantly, you learn to let situations unfold without offering them your emotional energy. There are people who will invite you into conflict simply because they need a reaction to feel powerful. There are moments where pride will tempt you to defend your name, your intelligence, your choices, even when the contest is beneath you. There are times when your ego will whisper, "Show them," even when proving yourself to them proves nothing at all. Recognizing the true battles is recognizing when your ego speaks louder than your spirit. It is choosing peace even when your pride wants war. It is choosing your higher self over your impulsive self. Understanding the true battles means seeing beyond the surface. Some conflicts masquerade as important because they feel urgent. Someone speaks loudly, rudely, disrespectfully, and your heart jumps. Your mind heats up. You want to respond, you want to defend yourself. But urgency is not importance. Noise is not meaning. Heightened emotion is not truth. Many of the battles that feel urgent in the moment fade into nothing once the heat cools. You look back days later and think, why did I give that so much of me? That reflection is your teacher. It teaches you that not all heat deserves your flame. A true battle is one that shapes your life, protects your growth, safeguards your boundaries, or aligns with your purpose. Anything that threatens your dignity, your safety, your dreams, or your peace is worth addressing. But addressing does not always mean fighting. Sometimes it means speaking truth calmly. Sometimes it means walking away. Sometimes it means releasing someone for good. Sometimes it means holding your head high and choosing silence over chaos. You do not fight every battle with the same weapon. To recognize the true battles, you must pay attention to how situations make you feel in the long term, not just in the moment. Does this conflict grow you or shrink you? Does it make you wiser or just angrier? Does it bring clarity or confusion? Does it protect something valuable or harm something precious? If the conflict does not elevate you, it is likely not yours to fight. Many battles are simply invitations. Open doors to a room filled with emotion, drama, and noise, but you are not obligated to walk through every door. Wisdom is knowing which invitations to decline. Peace is knowing you lose nothing by not attending every argument you are called to. Strength is knowing you are not diminished by choosing silence. In fact, silence often shows more power than any shouted words ever could. Every person comes to a point where they must protect their energy intentionally. You cannot grow if you are always fighting the wind. You cannot rise if you are held down by the weight of meaningless conflict. Your spirit was not built to live in constant battle mode. It was built to love, to create, to rise, to expand. But you cannot expand when you are squeezed by every petty disagreement that crosses your path. Recognizing the true battles is choosing a life of purpose over a life of reaction. It is deciding that not everything deserves access to your peace. It is letting the small things stay small. It is walking away not because you are weak, but because you are wise enough to protect your strength. When you master this, you do not lose battles. You avoid losing yourself in battles that were never meant for you. There is a sacred strength wrapped inside silence, a kind of power that does not shout, does not demand, does not break itself trying to be understood. Silence has its own language, its own rhythm, its own truth. It is the refuge of the wise, the sanctuary of the grounded, the home of those who have outgrown chaos. When life becomes loud, when people become sharp, when moments become heavy, silence becomes the place where your spirit returns to its original state, clear, steady, and whole. Silence is not the absence of voice. Silence is the presence of control. It is the art of knowing that you do not have to respond to everything. You do not have to defend yourself against every whisper, every accusation, every opinion tossed into the air by someone who does not live your life or carry your burdens. Silence is the gift you give to yourself when you choose peace over proving, clarity over chaos, and wisdom over reaction. There are times in life when words only add fuel to a fire that does not need to burn. When emotions rise, when tempers flare, when someone pushes you to react, silence becomes your shield. Not because you are weak, but because you are wise enough to understand that not every flame deserves your oxygen. Silence teaches you that your energy does not have to be wasted explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Many have mistaken silence for surrender, for avoidance, for fear. But those who have truly lived understand that silence is one of the greatest expressions of strength. To hold your tongue when everything in you wants to shout, to stay calm when someone tries to provoke you, that is mastery of the self. That is emotional intelligence at its highest. Anyone can scream, anyone can argue, anyone can react. But to remain composed, that is the power of someone who knows their worth. When you choose silence, you create space. Space for your thoughts to settle, space for your heart to breathe, space for truth to rise above noise. In silence, you hear the things that are often drowned out by the world, the quiet voice of intuition, the whisper of wisdom, the guidance of your deeper self. You cannot hear those things when you are busy arguing. You cannot hear them when you're defending yourself. You cannot hear them when you are reacting to every negativity thrown your way. Only silence allows you to reconnect with your inner compass. There is also a kind of healing that silence brings. Words can wound deeply, and sometimes the silence after the wound is where the healing begins. In silence, you stitch yourself back together. You learn to let go. You learn to forgive. You learn to separate what is real from what is temporary. Silence offers clarity, the kind of clarity that reveals who you are, what you want, and what you will no longer allow. People often fear silence because silence exposes truth. Truth about themselves, truth about their relationships, truth about their choices. Noise keeps people distracted. Noise keeps them from facing what they don't want to feel. But silence reveals everything. And that revelation, though sometimes uncomfortable, is necessary for growth. When you embrace silence, you embrace truth, and truth is the first step toward transformation. There will be moments when your silence will speak louder than your words ever could. Your absence will be noticed. Your calmness will be felt. Your refusal to engage will expose what needed to be exposed. Silence has a way of revealing other people's intentions. Those who wanted a fight will show their frustration. Those who wanted attention will show their desperation. Those who wanted control will show their weakness. And those who truly care will lean in, because they understand that silence from someone who usually speaks means something deeper is happening. Silence protects your dignity. Arguments often push people into places they later wish they had avoided. In the heat of emotion, words are spoken that cannot be taken back. Silence prevents regrets. Silence keeps you from losing yourself in the moment. It keeps you aligned with your integrity, with your character, with your truth. When you choose silence, you choose the version of yourself that you won't have to apologize for later. There is also a profound beauty in being silent in a world that constantly demands reaction. The world says, speak now, defend yourself now, prove yourself now. But your spirit says, wait, breathe, observe. Silence is the pause that protects you from making choices you'll regret. It is the breath that saves you from speaking too soon. It is the moment that gives you power over your own narrative. Some battles are won with silence, not because the other person changes, but because you refuse to give the conflict a home inside your heart. When you stay silent, you take away the aggressor's power. You deny them the satisfaction of your reaction. You show them that your peace is not up for negotiation. Silence is not losing. It is choosing not to lose yourself. There is a point in life where you realize that your peace is more valuable than winning any argument. You understand that inner harmony is worth more than the temporary satisfaction of proving someone wrong. Silence becomes the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. It becomes the medicine that calms your spirit, the shield that protects your soul, and the teacher that guides your growth. Silence also teaches patience, and patience is one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. Patience helps you see the bigger picture. It stops you from reacting to temporary emotions. It allows you to witness how situations unfold naturally, how truth reveals itself, how time exposes what words cannot. When you allow silence to work, life itself becomes your advocate. And sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give. It says, this no longer deserves me. It says, I am not lowering myself to this level. It says, my spirit is too wise, too strong, too centered to be shaken by this. Silence becomes your declaration of self-respect. The power in silence is not in the quiet. It is in the choice. The choice to rise above. The choice to stay grounded. The choice to protect your peace. The choice to honor your spirit. When you understand that, silence becomes not just a response, but a way of living, steady, wise, and profoundly powerful. There is a quiet freedom that enters your life the moment you release the need to be right. It is like stepping out of a cage you did not realize you built around yourself. The need to be right is subtle, sometimes invisible, but it is heavy. It makes your heart tense, your mind rigid, your spirit restless. It pushes you to defend, to argue, to prove your worth through words, even when the conversation has already drained the joy from your bones. When you release that need, you do not lose anything. Instead, you gain back your peace, your clarity, your emotional maturity. The need to be right often comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being overlooked, fear of not being seen as intelligent, fear that silence will be mistaken for weakness. But the truth is, insisting on being right rarely brings understanding. More often, it widens the gap. It turns conversations into battles, curiosity into accusation, connection into competition. You may win the point, but you lose the peace. You win the argument, but lose the moment. You win the debate, but lose the softness of the relationship. And sometimes you win, but you walk away feeling emptier than before. There is strength in speaking your truth, but there is an even deeper strength in understanding that your truth does not need to overpower someone else's. What is real does not need to be proven. What is true does not need to be defended at every turn. Life is not a courtroom, and love is not a debate. When you let go of the compulsion to be right, you allow space for understanding, for empathy, for growth. Things that cannot take root in the soil of constant conflict. Often the need to be right is tied to the ego, and the ego is loud. It wants applause. It wants validation. It wants the last word. But the spirit wants none of that. The spirit wants peace. The spirit wants connection. The spirit wants understanding. Every time you choose not to argue, not to defend every detail, not to force your opinion into the room, you are choosing spirit over ego. And that choice elevates you. People sometimes believe that if they do not correct someone, they are agreeing with them. But silence is not agreement. It is simply choosing that this moment is not worth your energy. Not every misunderstanding needs to be untangled. Not every statement needs to be challenged. Not every wrong idea needs your correction. Some things are better left unspoken. Some lessons are learned through time, not debate. And some minds are closed so tightly that no number of explanations will open them. Letting go of the need to be right does not mean shrinking yourself. It means you are confident enough in who you are that you do not require constant external confirmation. You do not have to win every point because you are not competing against anyone. You are simply moving through life in alignment with who you are. Your character becomes louder than your corrections. Your actions become more powerful than your explanations. Your peace becomes more valuable than your pride. There is a certain grace that comes when you learn to say, "I hear you," even when you do not agree. Not sarcastically, not dismissively, but with sincerity. Because understanding someone's point of view does not mean you adopt it. It simply means you value the harmony more than the need to dominate the conversation. It means you are mature enough to listen without needing to convert someone to your side. Some people argue because they seek connection through conflict. Others argue because they feel unseen, and battling feels like the only way to feel significant. But you cannot heal anyone by engaging in battles that exhaust your soul. The most loving thing you can sometimes do is step back. The most respectful thing you can do is give space. The most intelligent thing you can do is decide that your peace is worth more than a verbal victory. There is also a humility in releasing the need to be right. Humility is not weakness. It is a quiet recognition that you are human, still learning, still growing. It is the understanding that you do not have to be the expert of every subject, the judge of every situation, or the corrector of every person. Humility lets you say, maybe I don't know everything. It lets you ask questions instead of forming attacks. It lets you listen instead of strategizing your next point. Humility makes space for wisdom, because wisdom can only enter a mind that is willing to soften. Sometimes letting go of being right means allowing people to think what they will about you, and that is one of the hardest lessons of all. But you cannot control other people's perceptions. You cannot shape their understanding of you through argument. You can only live in a way that is true, honest, and peaceful, and let your life speak for itself. Time has a way of revealing truth more gently and more powerfully than any argument ever could. There will also be moments when people argue not to understand you, but to provoke you. They want to pull you into emotional mud so they can say, "See, you're just like me." Releasing the need to be right protects you from being dragged into emotional traps. It keeps your dignity intact. It keeps your heart from becoming entangled in unnecessary tension. You begin to realize that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is no statement at all. Sometimes the most profound wisdom is choosing silence over correction. And sometimes the strongest move is letting someone walk away believing whatever they want, while you walk away with your peace untouched. When you no longer need to be right, you make room for calm. You make room for clarity. You make room for compassion. You make room for becoming the kind of person whose presence speaks louder than their arguments. Your energy becomes lighter. Your interactions become softer. Your relationships become deeper. And your heart becomes freer, not because you lost the argument, but because you released the burden of having to win it. There is a quiet wisdom in pausing before you react, a strength hidden in that single breath you take between what you feel and what you choose to do. In that moment, small, still, often overlooked, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself that you are not ruled by impulse, not governed by emotion, not directed by the noise around you. You are deliberate. You are intentional. You respond with clarity, not chaos. And clarity only comes when you first seek to understand. Most people react before they even know what they're reacting to. A word cuts them, a tone irritates them, a gesture confuses them, and without a second thought, they unleash their response, sharp, emotional, unfiltered. But reacting without understanding is like swinging your fists in the dark. You may hit something, but you may also destroy something precious without meaning to. You may fracture a relationship, wound someone you love, or misjudge a situation that only needed patience. When you understand before reacting, you create space. Space for truth to emerge, space for misunderstanding to dissolve, space for emotions to settle. That space is strength. That space is maturity. That space is the difference between chaos and wisdom. It is the difference between saying something you regret and saying something that heals. It is the difference between making a moment worse and making it clear. So much pain in life comes from reacting too quickly. A message taken the wrong way, a comment heard through tired ears, a tone misinterpreted because your heart is carrying old wounds. If you listened again, more gently, more openly, more calmly, you might hear something different. You might hear fear instead of anger. You might hear confusion instead of disrespect. You might hear a plea for understanding instead of an attack. But you cannot hear any of that when you are already preparing your comeback instead of seeking clarity. Understanding requires humility, the humility to accept that you don't always see the full picture. You don't always know what someone meant. You don't always understand what someone is going through. You don't always interpret things correctly. Your mind can twist things when it's tired. Your emotions can distort things when they're raw. Your past can whisper lies into your present if you're not careful. To understand before reacting is to give yourself, the grown, healed, grounded part of you, a chance to lead instead of letting your wounds speak for you. Sometimes you need to ask questions instead of assuming. What did you mean by that? Can you explain what you're feeling? Help me understand your perspective. These questions are not signs of weakness. They are signs of emotional intelligence. They are signs that you are choosing connection over conflict, clarity over confusion, peace over pride. Asking does not diminish you. It elevates you. There are moments where understanding someone else also means understanding yourself. Why did those words upset you so deeply? Why did that moment trigger something old? Why did you feel threatened when no threat was present? When you understand the roots of your own reactions, you become less reactive and more aware. You stop letting old pain lead your present decisions. You stop letting fear shape your conversations. You stop projecting your past onto people who had nothing to do with it. Understanding requires listening, not the kind of listening where you wait to talk, but the kind where you lean in with your heart, where you let someone express themselves fully before you decide how you feel about their words, where you treat their perspective as valid, even if you do not agree. So many conflicts are extended simply because nobody listens. People talk over each other, defend without thinking, argue without clarity, and respond without understanding. But when one person chooses to truly listen, the entire conversation shifts. The atmosphere softens, the tension loosens. Solutions appear where arguments once stood. Reacting is easy. Understanding is skill. Reacting satisfies the ego. Understanding satisfies the soul. Sometimes understanding means stepping into someone else's emotional landscape for a moment. Maybe they're hurting. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they're carrying the weight of something you know nothing about. The person who snapped at you might be drowning in responsibilities. The friend who seemed cold might be battling silent pain. The loved one who spoke harshly might be overwhelmed by stress they don't know how to express. Understanding does not excuse bad behavior, but it explains it. And when you have explanation, you respond with compassion instead of confrontation. There will be moments when your emotions flare so quickly that your instincts push you to react immediately. But if you allow yourself even a few seconds to breathe, a moment to ground yourself, your reaction changes. Breath is a bridge between emotion and clarity. Breath is the reminder that you have control. Breath is the doorway to understanding. Whenever you feel that familiar surge, anger rising, frustration igniting, hurt tightening your chest, pause. Ask yourself, what is actually happening here? Not what you felt in the first second, but what is true beneath the feeling. Ask, what am I not seeing? Because there is always something you're not seeing. Ask, what response aligns with who I want to be? Because the version of you that reacts impulsively is not the version you are growing into. Understanding before reacting does not mean suppressing your emotions. It means respecting your emotions enough to handle them with care. It means allowing them to pass through clarity before they escape through words. It means valuing your peace more than the need to immediately respond. When you cultivate this way of responding, your relationships change. Misunderstandings shrink, respect grows, arguments become less frequent, connections deepen. People feel safer around you. They trust your presence, your calmness, your way of approaching conflict without turning it into war. And perhaps most importantly, you feel safer within yourself. You trust your ability to navigate emotions. You trust your wisdom over your impulses. You trust your calm over your chaos. To understand before reacting is to honor your highest self. It is to choose growth over ego, clarity over confusion, and peace over impulsiveness. It is the quiet, steady path of someone who has learned that the world looks different when you see it through understanding instead of reaction. There comes a time in every person's life when they realize that the greatest protection they can offer their spirit is the boundary they place around their peace. Emotional boundaries are not walls built from fear. They are doors built from wisdom. They are the gentle but firm reminders that your heart, your energy, your time, and your mental space are sacred. And not everyone deserves equal access to them. Setting emotional boundaries is the act of honoring yourself, not abandoning others. It is choosing what keeps you whole, not what keeps you busy trying to please everyone. Many people walk through life exhausted, not because they are weak, but because they carry what does not belong to them. They absorb the moods of others, the opinions of others, the demands of others, and slowly they begin to lose pieces of themselves. They feel guilty for saying no, guilty for stepping back, guilty for needing space. But guilt is not a compass, it is a habit, and habits can be unlearned. Emotional boundaries begin with the understanding that your feelings matter, your mental health matters, your comfort matters, your needs matter. You do not have to earn permission to protect your peace. You do not have to justify why you are prioritizing your well-being. You do not have to apologize for choosing yourself. The only apology needed is for the years you spent trying to be everything for everyone while neglecting yourself. Boundaries teach others how to treat you. When you allow people to overstep, they learn that your yes is automatic. When you never express discomfort, they assume you have none. When you silence your needs, they think you don't have any. People are not mind readers. They respond to the boundaries you set or the lack of them. And when you finally decide to draw a line, you are not pushing them away. You are simply choosing where you end and they begin. Setting emotional boundaries requires courage because it often means disappointing people who are used to your availability. It means saying no when you used to say yes. It means stepping back when you used to step in. It means allowing others to feel whatever they feel without making their emotions your responsibility. But the cost of not setting boundaries is far greater than the discomfort of establishing them. You cannot carry everyone's burdens without breaking under the weight. You cannot fix everyone's problems without losing your own stability. You cannot heal others while ignoring your wounds. Emotional boundaries are the reminder that you are responsible for your own emotional world, not the emotional world of others. You can be compassionate without being consumed. You can be supportive without being drained. You can be loving without sacrificing your sanity. There is a particular strength in saying, "I cannot hold this for you," not out of coldness, but out of honesty. Emotional boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about staying true to your capacity. They are about acknowledging that your heart has limits, and those limits deserve respect. Sometimes the most loving response is clarity. Sometimes the most caring action is distance. Sometimes the most compassionate choice is stepping back instead of stepping in. People who truly care for you will adjust to your boundaries. They may be surprised at first, but real love adapts. Real respect understands. Real connection is strengthened, not destroyed by honesty. The ones who resist your boundaries are often the ones who benefited from your lack of them. Their discomfort is not your problem to solve. You are not responsible for managing their reactions. You are responsible only for protecting your peace. One of the most powerful boundaries you can set is the choice to stop explaining yourself. When you constantly justify your decisions, you invite others to debate your truth. Boundaries lose their strength when you try to convince people why you need them. You do not need permission to rest. You do not need approval to prioritize your mental health. You do not need validation to walk away from what drains you. A simple "no, this doesn't work for me" is enough. A simple "I need space" is enough. A simple "I cannot continue this conversation right now" is enough. But boundaries are not only about what you say, they are also about what you allow. If someone repeatedly crosses a line you have clearly expressed, your boundary must shift from words to action. You do not need to fight. You do not need to argue. You do not need to beg them to see your worth. Distance is also a boundary. Limiting access is also a boundary. Silence is also a boundary. Sometimes the most powerful boundary is simply removing yourself from the places and the people who refuse to honor the limits you set. Setting emotional boundaries also means recognizing your triggers, your limits, and your emotional patterns. It means understanding what drains you and what nourishes you. It means being honest about what you can tolerate and what you cannot. Emotional boundaries are not built in a moment. They are built through self-awareness, through slowing down enough to recognize when your heart feels violated or overwhelmed. You learn to stop the moment before you break. You learn to speak your truth before resentment builds. You learn to walk away before anger erupts. Boundaries allow you to love more peacefully because you are not pouring from an empty cup. They allow you to be present without being overwhelmed, giving without being depleted, caring without losing yourself. People may call you distant, but what they are witnessing is your healing. They may call you selfish, but what they are seeing is your rebirth. They may call you changed, but what they really mean is that you stopped allowing the old version of yourself to be exploited. The truth is, emotional boundaries are a form of self-respect. They are a declaration that you matter. They are the line you draw that says, here is where my peace lives, and I will protect it fiercely. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the gates that allow only healthy love to enter. They are the filters that separate the nourishing from the harmful. They are the tools that keep your spirit whole. Understanding this allows you to step into a life where you give with intention instead of exhaustion, where you love with balance instead of burden, where you show up for others without abandoning yourself. Boundaries free you, they protect you, they strengthen you, and they teach the world how to honor the sacred space of your soul. There comes a time in every person's journey when conflict appears not as a storm to destroy them, but as a mirror to reveal them. Most people run from conflict, fearing its sharpness, its unpredictability, its ability to expose the wounds they try so hard to hide. But conflict, when looked at through wiser eyes, can become one of the greatest teachers you will ever encounter. It forces you to pause, to confront the parts of yourself you have avoided, and to stretch the boundaries of your inner strength. Growth rarely arrives wrapped in comfort. It often slips into your life disguised as disagreement, discomfort, or disruption. And when you learn how to transform conflict into growth, you no longer fear its presence. You begin to understand its purpose. Conflict has a way of stripping the layers from your life until only truth remains. In those heated moments when emotions rise and misunderstandings collide, you are confronted with a choice: to react from your wounds or respond from your wisdom. Most of us, when unprepared, react from pain. We defend, we attack, we withdraw, or we blame. But once you learn to stand still inside the fire without letting it burn your spirit, something powerful happens. You begin to realize that conflict is not meant to weaken you. It is meant to refine you. It is meant to teach you self-control, compassion, clarity, and courage. It is meant to reveal areas of your life that need healing, strengthening, or transformation. Conflict can be a powerful mirror. It reflects back to you your triggers, your insecurities, your assumptions, and your emotional patterns. It shows you what makes you feel small, what makes you feel threatened, what makes you feel unheard. It exposes the wounds that still bleed beneath your smile. Instead of resenting this exposure, you learn to value it, because nothing heals until it is acknowledged. Nothing changes until it is seen. Conflict brings these truths to the surface, giving you the chance to grow into someone more grounded, more aware, and more in control of your emotional landscape. One of the most profound lessons conflict teaches is patience. In the midst of disagreement, when your pride rises and your voice wants to overpower the room, patience becomes a shield that protects your peace. It reminds you not to swing blindly at shadows created by misunderstanding. It reminds you that words spoken in anger echo far longer than you intend. Conflict invites you to slow down, breathe, and observe the situation before reacting. It teaches you that not every reaction deserves your immediacy, not every accusation deserves your energy, and not every battle is worth entering. Patience expands your wisdom. It gives you room to understand instead of simply defend. Conflict also teaches humility, not the false humility that comes from shrinking yourself, but the real kind, the kind that acknowledges your blind spots, your mistakes, and your contributions to the tension. There is immense strength in saying, "Let me see where I might be wrong," or "Help me understand your side." When you choose humility over ego, you transform conflict into a bridge instead of a barrier. You create space for clarity to enter, for communication to deepen, for healing to become possible. Humility is not weakness. It is the courage to choose connection over domination, growth over pride, truth over victory. Transforming conflict into growth also requires emotional maturity. This means recognizing that someone else's anger does not define you, that their disappointment does not diminish you, and that their reaction is not always a reflection of your worth. Emotional maturity allows you to stay grounded when tension rises. It helps you listen even when the conversation is uncomfortable. It helps you separate the message from the emotional noise surrounding it. And perhaps most importantly, emotional maturity teaches you that you are not responsible for anyone else's emotional storms, only for how you navigate your own. Another gift hidden in conflict is clarity. Conflict reveals the true nature of relationships. It shows you who can handle hard conversations and who shuts down, who listens and who only speaks, who respects your boundaries and who pushes past them, who values growth and who clings to control. Conflict strips away the illusions, forcing you to see people as they are, not as you wish they would be. In this clarity, you learn who to build with, who to be cautious with, and who you must release. This clarity itself is growth, the kind that protects your future from repeating the same mistakes of your past. Conflict can also be a catalyst for transformation. It pushes you to develop better communication skills, stronger self-awareness, healthier boundaries, and deeper compassion. It forces you to expand your emotional vocabulary, to articulate your needs, to express your truth with intention instead of aggression. The more you grow, the less you are intimidated by disagreement. You stop seeing conflict as a threat and start seeing it as an opportunity, a doorway into a wiser version of yourself. You learn to approach challenges with calmness instead of chaos, with strength instead of fear, with understanding instead of resistance. And there is something profoundly liberating about realizing that growth is always available, even in the hardest moments. You discover that the very situations meant to break you become the ones that build you. The conflicts that once drained you now sharpen you. The disagreements that once triggered you now teach you. The emotional storms that once drowned you now cleanse you. In this transformation, you reclaim your power. You no longer allow situations or people to dictate your emotional state. You become rooted in your own resilience, grounded in your own clarity, anchored in your own inner wisdom. Conflict teaches you that peace is not the absence of storms, but the ability to remain centered in the midst of them. It teaches you that growth is not born from avoiding life's challenges, but from facing them with grace, awareness, and courage. You evolve from someone who fears discomfort into someone who understands that discomfort is often the birthplace of your greatest breakthroughs. You begin to move through life with a steadier heart, a clearer mind, and a soul that refuses to be shaped by chaos. Because ultimately, transforming conflict into growth is not about changing others. It is about changing yourself. It is about rising above your old patterns, stepping into your higher self, and choosing growth over reaction, clarity over confusion, and wisdom over turmoil. And when you embrace this way of living, conflict becomes less of a threat and more of a guide, leading you, shaping you, and strengthening you into the person you were always meant to become. There is a quiet kind of strength that most people never learn to embrace, the strength of letting go. The world teaches you to hold on, to cling, to fight for what you love, to endure beyond your breaking point. But very few are taught that sometimes the greatest act of courage is not in holding tight, but in opening your hand and releasing what no longer belongs to you. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is not resignation. It is not giving up on life. Letting go is choosing yourself. It is choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and healing over hurt. It is choosing to honor your soul even when your heart still aches for something that has already outgrown you. There are seasons in life when holding on becomes heavier than the loss itself. You begin to feel the weight in your body, in your thoughts, in your sleep, in your silence. You feel yourself stretching to keep something alive that is slowly draining your strength. Maybe it's a relationship that no longer nurtures your spirit. Maybe it's a dream that once fueled you but no longer aligns with who you've become. Maybe it's an expectation from yourself or others that keeps you trapped in a version of life that no longer fits. Whatever it is, you know deep down when the time has come to release it. The signs come slowly at first, whispering through the cracks of your peace, then louder with every moment you try to pretend everything is fine. Letting go becomes not a choice, but a necessity for survival. And yet letting go is difficult because it forces you to confront the truth. You cannot hide behind hope anymore. You cannot soothe yourself with maybe things will change. You must face what is. You must acknowledge that some people cannot go where you are growing. Some situations cannot move with you into the next chapter. Some battles are not meant to be fought anymore. Letting go demands honesty, the kind that tastes like bitter medicine but heals you from the inside out. It pulls away illusions. It forces you to see things clearly, maybe for the first time. And though clarity can hurt, it is the foundation of freedom. Letting go also requires trust. Trust that empty hands will eventually be filled again. Trust that the universe does not take without giving. Trust that the space left behind is not a punishment, but a preparation. Many people cling to what hurts because they fear the unknown. They fear the quiet that follows release. They fear who they will be without the familiar weight they have carried for so long. But the beautiful truth is this: the unknown is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of everything your heart has secretly been yearning for. The unknown is where your next peace lives, your next joy, your next miracle, your next transformation. When you let go, you do not lose yourself. You find yourself again. Letting go teaches you boundaries. It teaches you that your heart is not an open field for anyone to walk through. It teaches you that your time, your energy, your mind, your soul, all of these are precious resources that must be protected. When you let go of what drains you, you create room for what restores you. When you let go of who belittles you, you create room for those who see your worth. When you let go of old stories about who you should be, you create room for who you truly are. Every release becomes an act of reclamation, a moment where you reclaim a part of yourself you had unintentionally abandoned. It takes strength to walk away from what once felt like home, even when that home has become a battlefield. It takes strength to unlearn the habits that kept you small. It takes strength to choose peace when chaos is familiar. But this strength grows within you each time you take a step forward. You begin to realize that nothing you release was ever meant to define you. You realize that some endings are actually openings. You realize that your spirit was created to expand, not to shrink itself to fit inside a place or a person who no longer recognizes its light. Letting go also teaches you compassion, compassion for yourself. You stop blaming yourself for staying too long, loving too deeply, or trying too hard. You begin to understand that you were doing the best you could with the heart you had. You forgive yourself not because you were wrong, but because you deserve to move forward without carrying guilt like a shadow. And in letting go, you develop compassion for others too. You understand that not everyone is meant to stay, not every connection is meant to last, not every chapter needs to be carried into the next volume of your life. You learn to release people with grace, even those who hurt you, even those who disappointed you, even those who didn't know how to love you. You let them go not for them, but for yourself. There is a moment after the tears, after the silence, after the fear, when a strange sense of lightness arrives. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed. You wake up one day and the ache in your chest has softened. The noise in your mind has quieted. The memory that once shattered you no longer holds the same power. That is the reward of letting go, the peace that finds you when you finally stop resisting the truth. This peace does not arrive all at once. It comes in waves, in breaths, in small steps, but it comes. And when it does, you begin to see your life with new eyes. You begin to feel your strength again. You begin to recognize the person you are becoming, someone wiser, someone braver, someone more aligned with their purpose. Because letting go is not losing. Letting go is choosing yourself, choosing your future, choosing your healing, choosing the path that leads you back to your own soul. And there is no greater strength than that. Life does not reward those who fight every battle. It rewards those who choose peace over chaos, wisdom over pride, love over anger. When you detach from unnecessary conflict, you do not step away from life, you step into it fully. You choose a life that is guided by your spirit, not by the noise of the world. Let your peace be louder than any argument. Let your strength shine in silence. And remember, the battles worth fighting will find you, but the rest, let them go.